Ah. Okay, good. Where's my agenda? Thanks, Jim. The meeting of special meeting of the Technology Committee Thursday, July 27th, 2023. Come to order. Clerk, read the order. Read the call the board.
Adel.
Here.
Ella. Drake.
Here.
Cardo. Gentile.
Here.
Salemi. Taylor. That was Salemi.
That's Lemmy.
I believe Commissioner Taylor is on. I see a phone number that looks like his.
He might not be.
He was muted. I just sent a request.
I never realized in that meeting last night that I had to push star six to get into it. And I kept interrupting, Mr. Chairman, and they kept talking. And I'm saying, what the hell? What's going on here? Finally, okay. Public comments relative to agenda items. Approval of minutes of the meeting of July 20th, 2023. Moved. Second. Are there any additions or deletions? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Item 4, presentation from staff regarding 2023 RFI 01 submittal of the CTEC Energy Sales, Inc. Let me get my glasses, I can't see here.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I just would get it started by saying that this is the second submission to the Technology Committee by CTEC. And by the way, I'm Kelly Shane, Chief Administrative Officer here at the MDC. And staff, Tom Tyler and his staff have gone through the submission along with Scott, and they've put together a set of questions that they did during their review of CTEC's submission and have provided it to you along with the white paper. There's a packet that you have in front of you, and are here to answer any questions or go through and review it with you. Scott, I don't know if you want to say anything or have...
Yeah, no, thank you, Kelly. So as we did in a previous presentation, the REA presentation, John submitted these to you this morning or this afternoon.
We got them this morning.
Yeah, this morning. It's on open text. Tom's staff and myself went through the proposal, and we tried to do the same thing that we did with REA, which is really ask the big questions up front, and then the technical stuff, can follow. If you can get past the big questions, then you can get into the details. Based on this proposal is probably the only proposal that actually submitted something that was specific to the RFI request. We basically said, we're looking for a technology that could be a quote trash to energy type proposal that could not only burn MSW trash, municipal solid waste, but also could it burn biosolids, human sludge, human waste? Could it burn medical waste? And so this proposal does that. As we get into the latter part of the comments, they kind of stray off of that and start talking or implying that they're proposing or may not be proposing to utilize this technology to replace our incinerators. We're not sure. That's why we asked a lot of questions around that. But the initial proposal was basically from the MW, what's the name of the waste, the MSW? Yeah. Yeah, it really starts off with their proposal about dealing with municipal solid waste, trash, and then the CTEC component is to basically I don't know what they use for term CTEC. They don't use the term incineration. They don't use the term combustion. They don't use the term burn. So they do pyrolysis to get rid of whatever isn't a recyclable or something of that nature. Right.
It's not a flame.
So in that context, what we did was reviewing, as you know, and I think you've seen those in the past. When we first started talking with CTEC back in I think January of 21, they provided us with a white paper, and I've provided this to you. It's we've quoted in our white paper, and what they had told us then was their abstract of their white paper. Basically, it says, quote, Federal Clean Air Act emission performance standards for small municipal solid waste combustion units, hospitals, medical. This is all part of EPA and the state deep, and infectious waste streams, human sludge incinerators, and boilers do not apply to CTEC's waste to energy gasification technology. That's what the report says. That's what their information in the back of this supports. We had numerous conversations with them about that, to the point of we actually met because EPA does not have an air emissions regulation on gasification at this point. So we're trying to understand where this all falls in the regulations, and what DEEP we did. We met with DEEP and in March, and they provided us with a letter which I've given you a copy of, which basically says, I'll let DEEP speak for themselves. If I don't know if they're on the line or not. Is DEEP on the line? Is anybody from DEEP on the line? Yeah, Edith is from environmental justice. But basically, the letter indicates that even though there are no regulations associated with gasification with EPA, DEEP says that even though gasification, pyrolysis gasification, CTEC has said is not combustion, is not incineration. In my white paper, I quoted the DEEP staff, which says, and it's in that letter, that it is, although it is combustion, it is incineration, but with zero oxygen. So this letter basically says that the air emissions standards will apply to this project or to their technology. So that's really what the DEEP letter says. So the big question for us is, and that's why I have it number one, is, you know, what is the answer? Does the regulations, the air emissions standards, do they apply to the C technology? Yes or no? It's really simple. I don't know the answer. I only know what DEEP has said. EPA is quoted in my white paper that basically says, and that's on page 21. A woman named, I don't know how to say her name, but I'll just say Ms. Fisher, PhD from EPA. Sorry, EPA does not have adequate data, design, and operation of pyrolysis and gasification units and emissions characteristics, particular to such units, to decide the scope of future regulations. So there are no regulations in EPA for this equipment. They're developing them, but this air standard emissions falls to the delegated state, which is Connecticut DEEP. And DEEP says they do apply. So that's where we really need DEEP engagement. That's why question number one is, what's the answer to this question? Does it or doesn't apply? One thing CTEC has said to us on numerous occasions is we don't have to follow these standards, so therefore we can just bring it down and set it up at the plant and start it. So that's something that's got to get resolved.
Can't CTEC give us the emissions that we need up front? I mean, I'm saying over the years I've done enough permitting in the state of Connecticut for emissions, but usually the equipment supplier has data, and you give the data to DEEP, and they give you a permit based on all the things, and that's the end of it. I'm not sure why. I know it's early in the stages. Why can't CTEC give us what the emissions are? I mean, they do this. They built 40 plants or something like that. Why is that a problem?
Yeah, so this letter, I'm sorry, just to add to that, your question. So they have given us some emissions information. I think the concern is, or the question is that they're giving it to in a unit, not in a total, right? So you got to know how much you're burning or how much you're incinerating. This letter also talks about the fact that, because we were talking about MSW and mixing MSW with human solid waste or medical waste. This letter also basically says if you're planning to do anything at the treatment plant, at our treatment plant in Hartford, other than what you already do, you need a permit. And if you're going to mix MSW or some other solid waste with, you need a permit. So the point is, again, with the REA proposal, this is a big issue that's got to get resolved before you really go further. We were talking about it earlier. The MSW issue in Connecticut and across the country is a big topic. It's a state topic. It's a regional topic. And if we're not going to get a permit to operate something because of whatever, we should know that now, right? There's a real difference between these two documents. CTEC says they don't need permits. DEEP says they do. So we've got to get that resolved. And I think the only group that can resolve that for us is DEEP.
Well, I think that the DEEP has existing programs now that they're trying to stimulate this kind of technology. And they talk about a $4 million grant if it's approved into a process that would be a pilot. That would be a pilot that we run by DEEP. The $4 million comes from DEEP. And this was 6 months ago they started this process. They made the first awards, I believe, in April or May of 2023. So what is DEEP doing? I mean,
I don't know.
This is a question that why would you have something on the street to say we're going to give you $4 million if you're a commercial operation or you have a technology that we approve? They wouldn't say, okay, this is what you have to do to meet those standards, to test it. A pilot means that they're looking at testing something. And that's what this program from DEEP, I can't remember what it is, I haven't read it in months, but that was back 4, 5, 7 months ago when we started this process.
Yeah, I don't know about that,
DEEP's
Bill,
here,
but
so
yeah,
they have the
this
program.
is definitely a big question for DEEP. The only other thing I want to highlight is number 9, which we tried to highlight some of the important ones for the commissioners to focus on. But number 9 is an important one because, as we know, as the chairman said, there are, in our white paper, we identified there were a few pilots, gasification pyrolysis across the country, very few, but there's a few that are operational. There's one in California, but it's only the pyrolysis piece, making charcoal. There's another one in Schenectady, New York. And so Tom has brought this topic to this committee and to BPW, and I'll let him talk about it, but it was about Stanford, and this is a 20-year-old issue, right? So Stanford was, they built and designed a gasification pyrolysis system. And as we've said before, you can't burn water with pyrolysis and gasification. It's gotta be dry. Even CTEC's documentation says it needs to be at least only 10% moisture. So you have to dry it some way. Initially, CTEC said, well, we'll mix it with wood chips. Their proposal doesn't mix it with wood chips. They propose to dry it and pelletize it. And that's what others have done in the country. The problem with pelletization is you've got to burn gas to dry it, to turn it into a pellet. Now, what has happened since is all of these organizations that have done this, like Stanford and like Boston, they have these pellets, but now with PFAS, and you got the PFAS in the pellets, you can't land apply it, no one will take it, so now it's a major problem, right? So Stanford was at the New Hampshire, they did that conference up New Weapic, and NACWA did the gasification.
November of 2000.
Right, they were up there and they were promoting the Schenectady project as a pilot. And so Stanford signed up to bring their pellets, because right now they're bringing their pellets to
Georgia or
Florida, Georgia, wherever, Orange Groves, whatever it is. They signed up to say, well, we want to be part of this program because we need to get rid of our pellets. They built the pellet program, but the gasification didn't work 20 years ago, and so now they're left with the pellets. So Tom, once you start there and we just talked to them.
Yeah, so I stay in relative, frequent communication with the leadership at Stanford Water Pollution Control Authority. Knowing that the tech committee was coming up, I asked for an update, received it, and it was a pretty dismal experience for them. They pulled out of it for several reasons. Primarily, there was significant safety concerns on their part that they didn't want to be part of an environment that was very unsafe, very, very significant odor concerns, explosion potential because of very significant dust with lack of any kind of safety to control dust. And they also said that the technology was so immature that it really was not at all able to function for its intended purpose, and they just decided they didn't want to have any part of it. And so they've pulled out of that project, and they're no longer interested in participating in that pyrolysis pilot in Schenectady. So, yeah, they were very disappointed because I think they were kind of sold a bill of goods that it was really going to be part of their long-term solution. And as it turns out, it was not ready. I think their assessment on the technology was it was very immature. And the engineer there was literally trying to just make the thing work enough so they could sell it to someone else to commercialize the technology. So, disappointing for them. I think long term they still have interest in pyrolysis, gasification, and other means available to get rid of their sludge because they've, in essence, my take would be they kind of backed themselves into a predicament where now you have to make pellets because that's the technology that you've built into your facility. And like Scott said, 20 years ago, you could get rid of them. Now, and they did confirm to me that their drying process does not in any way remove PFAS. So now they've created little rocks that have some concentration of PFAS in. And, like Scott said, the landfills don't want to take it. Nobody wants to land apply it. And so the few outlets that are available, as you could imagine, supply and demand, the cost to get rid of them is very, very expensive.
So we don't suggest that CTEC is this Schenectady. They're not, right, who knows, all right? But it's in our white paper who they are, but the point is, we're not suggesting that they are them, right? But the point is, and we're not suggesting that what happened in Schenectady with pellets from solid waste, human solid waste, is what's going to happen with MSW. But the point is, it's such a unknown to all of us that we really need this issue with DEEP to be figured out before we go any further. Because if DEEP's going to say an absolute no to this, we should know that now. Edith is on the phone, and Edith in the letter, we talked about with her specifically about, what's the process? And Edith said, the process is before you get any permit from and they mentioned this at the last meeting, before you get any permit from the DEEP to do anything, because we're an environmental justice community, you have to do an environmental justice plan, and that's got to be approved first. So we really think that the first step in this process should be to work with DEEP and figure out what is it going to be regulated by the state, or isn't it? That's really the first question we have, and then all the other questions are just technical questions about the process and the facts that they presented. There's a lot of things that, and again, it's not even worth getting into because it's more the business side of it. And if you're not going to go forward, then why waste your time talking about, they assumed $25 an hour for staff, and our staff starting salary is $27 with benefits. So things like that, but there's 83 questions. We tried to be, as thorough as we could. But I would just say that the first question is really the biggest question for us. And it's not our decision. It's DEEP's issue. DEEP has been very clear to us, at least I believe, that the air emission standards and permitting process will be required for not just CTEX technology, but any gasification pyrolysis technology.
Scott, Gabrielle Frigon from DEEP.
Yes, she wrote.
She just joined in.
Oh, great.
Just let us know.
Thank you. Is she? Does she have any comments on, or she just joined
She
in?
just let us know.
Oh,
She's
okay.
Director of Waste Engineering and Enforcement Division.
Okay. So the woman who wrote the letter to us though is Camille Fontanella. And I know there's been a lot of changes at DEEP with a lot of different positions. A lot of people retiring. So I don't know how the committee would like to address that first question, but it is a really important one.
Well, I'm sorry, again, we got these today, okay? And I don't think we're gonna answer these questions.
No, of course not.
And I think they're legitimate questions that should be asked to CTEC.
Right.
And, let's have CTEC respond to the questions. They are a commercialized product, not in the United States. It runs in Europe. The bottom line issue is going through what I received from them, or we received from them, is significantly more than we ever saw. And I haven't talked to them in 7 or 8 months whenever we started this process. So I don't know what other than what we received it's about. I think we've got to question them because it's totally different, Scott, than what we talked about with them a year or so ago. There's a lot of water that's gone under the bridge since that time. And these questions, I don't think are going to be something that we're going to get into.
No. I agree with you. I'm not.
And I haven't read them, but if they have 100 or 100 and some odd pages of questions, that's good. Let's have them respond to it. What they gave to us is significantly more. And by the way, I was never aware that they had a solid waste component, so that's new. There's a series of in here. They have a series of additional services that they're provided off of technology that they've developed. The process of drying is different than they originally talked to us about. They're using the process. They also start talking about in here J-gas, which is another significant problem that they're dealing with. So I guess these are good questions, and I'm not questioning the questions or whether Stanford had a problem, and that should be addressed to CTEC. And it's a good question if they can answer it, because they are using pelletized process. Is it the same? I don't know. So these are good questions. It's a good place to start from. What I'd like to know, with DEEP on the line, there is, at least there was in April of 2020, what are we in, 3? Yeah, 23. They were awarding a contract for pilot programs on certain technologies. And one of them they were talking about was something in this area where they gave $4 million to a pilot and would be willing to do it after, they'd have to review this, put it before them. I'd like to ask CTEC, did they go to DEEP and ask to be qualified? Because they did make a statement to us initially almost 2 years ago or a year and a half ago where they would come in and set up a pilot and da-da-da. Now, we never pursued it. We never discussed it. But that was a statement that was made to, I think it was you and me, Scott.
Yeah, and that's what initiated, that's what they proposed, was they were gonna do a pilot and, you know, bring down their equipment and do a pilot. And that's what initiated this conversation with DEEP. And then subsequently, when we got the letter, the answer was, we can't do a pilot. We've gotta, you need an air permit to do it. So that's kind of how that all came about.
But then after that was what I'm telling you, that rating, and I think the first award was set for sometime in April of 2023. Whether they made awards or not, DEEP's on the line.
Yeah, we can ask them.
They can give us some information about that. I don't know anything about, like I said, I haven't had any discussions at all with anybody from CTEC since whenever we signed that was 6 months ago, 7 months ago. And I made it very clear to them that I did not want a telephone call from them or any involvement because we had signed on what we were doing was for information. And
Do
they-
we have Tracy Babbage or anybody from the incineration group on the phone from DEEP that can talk to this pilot program that the chairman's talking about, if they're aware of it?
I'll get the information. I had it at home. I thought I had it with me. I think it was David first and then.
The lady from Deep is on. I hope she's listening, but I still don't understand. CTEC has made 40 plants of some sort around the world. Most of them in Europe, where the emission standards are probably worse than ours. I don't understand how they can't give us all the data we need, emissions data, and we go to DEEP and said, I understand we don't have to get a permit with this. I mean, this is done all the time. Will this meet the state's regulations? And then they say yes or no, then we can kind of move ahead. That doesn't mean you're going to get a permit, but that's what the world does. I mean, everybody does it that way. I don't know why, I don't want to get hung up on that, but CTEC's made 40 plants, give us the emissions data, we give it to DEEP and say, will this meet it? That's the answer. That's how the world works.
Yeah, I agree with
All
you.
the time.
I agree with you.
If she's still on the phone, is that the answer? I don't know why we have to do a pilot plant to get emissions data. That seems insane to me.
No. The pilot plant wasn't to get emissions data. The pilot plant was initially offered to us by CTEC because they had said that we don't need any air permits, the white paper.
I don't believe them at all.
Yeah.
I don't believe
No, I know, but that's why the pilot program was
but
offered.
the point is that we keep saying we got to go get a permit, an air permit, and I agree with that. You got to get an air permit,
Right.
but the point is,
Sure, David, it can be also answered by CTEC. I mean, did they or did they not? They have that.
that's the first question we ask them. I'm going to go from the people at DEEP. If we give you the emissions, someone should say, yes, this looks like it meets all our criteria, and we can move on without spending a lot of time worrying about it. That's what
We agree. That's why it's the first question.
We don't need a permit. We just
I would assume if there's a pilot program, as I thought there was, that I read, that to do the pilot program, you would have to submit certain things to them to make sure you're just not lighting something up.
Yeah, I mean, again, CTEC should. That's how the world works. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think the important thing that we have to keep in mind there is if you were to get data, Commissioner, it has to be on the exact product that you are going to put through the unit. So what they told us, what they were doing in Europe was burning medical waste, biological waste, which turned out to be limbs, medical waste. So you can't take medical waste data and provide that to deep and burn sludge.
They have 40 different plants, I'm sure.
It has to be on the product that you are going to burn, and that's why if you did the pilot to gather the data, it's on the sludge that you would burn or the MSW you would burn. You can't give deep data from burning medical waste in Europe and
I'm 100% with you, but if you look around this state, the number of people put industrial plants in, and they're getting permits before they put them in, and they haven't built the plant. This is happening all around the state. People get permits all the time without the exact data. The engineer should know and can extrapolate, should have sense that they meet the data. I mean, before we even say, I understand we do a pilot plant, but the point is, I don't think we should get hung up on that. If we should be able to get data from if they can't, then we probably don't want to get involved.
Well, the important part of this is we're all saying different things, but it's the same thing. This is an important component, and that's why it's the first question. So we've got to get past this question and to understand what Tom had said. You know, in our initial conversations with CTEC, we weren't talking about MSW. Right now we're talking about MSW, but prior to MSW, the technology that the CTEC had quoted, and it's all in their paraphernalia, which I think all of you have. They refer to what they burn in Europe as biomass, defined as medical waste, arms, limbs, body parts, right? When we were talking with them about human waste, it's in the white paper. You know, it took a couple of meetings and conversations and emails to clarify with CTEC that biosolids is human poop, not arms, legs, and limbs. So biosolids and biomass is two different things. They finally clarified in an email, it's in the white paper, that they have not processed biosolids in the past.
What's feces solid, sludge solid concentration? Solids concentration.
I'm just gonna go to
Number 8 in their appendix.
yeah. What
Products passing through the CTEC process.
Yeah. I guess the important point of this, without getting to the minutia, is that first question. We've really got to get there. That's a really important component. It's really, really important because it really starts the discussion. It really starts the discussion with whether or not this is okay. So if you look at page 27 in my white paper, there's page 27. There's an email a conversation between Chris Stone and Chris Harrison, who I believe is the CEO of CTEC.
He's not the CEO.
He's not. I think he's identified on this white paper as yeah. He's identified in the proposal. He's the CEO on the in his white paper. What's that?
Not the big company, the American company.
He's proposed as the CEO, right? In his proposal for this. So in that conversation, in that April 2022 conversation, they were using the term biomass. We were talking about burning human sludge. Lots of conversations back and forth about trying to understand what the topic was. Chris Stone asked this question, the top of the page. It was not clear to me whether the UK and France facilities were processing human waste. Thanks for clarifying that fact. They do. And then Chris Harrison replies, now I understand your question. No, they are not processing human waste specifically, but in hospital human waste and body parts from surgeries and other procedures winding up in the waste stream. So that's what we know. It doesn't really matter at this point because we're not, the focus on this RFI was really MSW and the potential to burn some other waste streams with it. But it's water under the bridge. The most important part is really, again, the first question. We got to get some answers from deep as to what their position is on this technology and the permitting process and the environmental justice. I agree with you, Commissioner, 100%. But the majority of those projects that are getting a permit to start without anything, it's not an environmental justice community. You know, Hartford is an environmental justice community. You don't get any air permits in an environmental justice community without a significant amount of due diligence.
So, but that part of it is basically where we locate it though, right? That doesn't mean technically we still have emissions. Isn't
What?
environmental justice.
Environmental justice community.
That decides where you locate it. Doesn't matter.
Nope.
No?
Edith, are you there?
Star six.
Edith, how are you? Good. Could you just, yes, okay.
Anybody?
And Edith, just for our own information, what defines a environmental justice community by statute?
Going back to what I said.
Thank you, Edith.
We have a viable project.
You have a question, Dave?
Again, we have a viable project maybe, but location affects that part, which she said, so we can worry about that later, right? You know,
No.
no, can't?
Well, if the standard that was being tested was significantly below what was what was in place, that would have to go before, I would assume, this group to determine in deep, to determine whether they would allow a pilot in that location. Wouldn't that be one of the considerations that the environmental justice group would look at? Deep? Edith, is there not a program that DEEP has embraced and is articulated that allows a $4 million subsidy for certain pilots in this area if they had them? I don't know whether they selected them. They were talking about an April 2023 selection for those companies or technologies that were in that would come before DEEP to qualify for that $4 million grant. Now, I don't know if anybody ever did it. Do you know whether that program?
Gabby, can you hear us? Are you aware of any pilot program that Deep has initiated?
Well, I'm sure that energy obviously is part of what we're looking at. Energy would be a byproduct, a significant byproduct. So maybe that's where it fell in. And I can't remember which category it was under. I know reading it, it dealt with the whole question of waste and issues of that nature. And they were about to release information in April. So I must have been reading this in sometime in March or I've got it. I don't have it with me, but that was a program, and the program was a $4 million grant from Deep to support the pilot. To the best of my record. But this was. And I've got it.
Bill?
I'm sorry, you through, David?
Yeah, as far as the environmental justice aspect of it, wouldn't we just be redirecting traffic from, say, an all waste facility over to our plant a few blocks away? So I don't think there'd be a large impact whatsoever because frankly, there would probably be less of an impact because I think we'd be taking less waste given that we'd want to just take waste from our other MDC communities.
The only thing is, I don't believe that they process anything at the.
No, but trucks come in, they drop them off at the transfer station, so they'd just be doing the same thing, only dropping them off at our plant a few blocks away.
Yeah, but they don't process anything at.
No, it's just but
they receive it and ship it.
But the idea being that they bring, as Scott has pointed out several times, that the trucks have diesel fuel or whatever, and they're adding to the pollution of the community. So I think we'd be reducing that by taking fewer trucks. Secondly, we could also, implement some kind of requirement that they have natural gas or hydrogen or go into electric, vehicles at some point. So that was my first point I wanted to make. But secondly, as I recall, the CTEC was participating in that last fall in that New Hampshire.
They went to New Hampshire.
Meeting.
November 1st, I think.
It was the fall, yeah. And I thought at some point Deep had expressed some interest in having them come and talk to them about that technology. So that may have happened. We should find that out as well.
If you look at our white paper, there are comments in here from Deep regarding the technology. I'll just refer you back to page number 27. And again, this was not about MSW at the time. We were talking about burning the sludge, right? So it's two different animals. Although the proposal, we also asked for if you can burn other things other than MSW, then tell us you can. So there has been some conversations with Deep. CTEC has had. We have. That's the point. There's such a big issue here in front of this process of either burning MSW or burning additional sludge. We're already permitted to burn X. 42,000 dry tons a year. That's what we're allowed to burn. We can't burn a pound more. We can't mix it with MSW without a permit. We can't burn medical waste without a permit. All of this stuff relates to a permit. And now the industry issue with pyrolysis gasification and permitting that specifically is a big issue that hasn't been resolved, and we need DEEP to weigh in on that. Because it's important. I mean, it's without understanding whether or not DEEP's going to be willing to support an air permit for that in an environmentally justice community. We're again wasting a lot of time without having that, at least some conversations, right? I mean, I agree with Edith, sitting down with the DEEP staff and talking through. We've already done that, and that's what the letter's based on. But sitting down with everyone and talking through this issue, adding the MSW issue to it.
I was gonna say, is DEEP going to be in some type of position to give us some direction on MSW in the future? Do we want to be in?
Is there something, what's her?
Gabrielle forgot.
Gabrielle.
Gabrielle, you want to say something? Go ahead.
She's not.
On those secondary issues like traffic, what about existing facilities? Was obviously the existing facility that operated in South Meadows is no longer operating, but would that have applied to them too? There'd have to be a reevaluation of that? Under the 23 statute.
Um, go ahead, Edith. Go ahead. This is Scott Olson. A question for both Gabriella and Edith. Are you aware? I think the chairman alluded to it, but are you aware the CRA plant is that permit dead? Is that or is that facility still permitted?
They're reviewing that right now, I believe, aren't they? They have a plan of about 39 or $30 million or something like that as a closure fee. I think that's what they're looking at.
So Scott Olson again. So if if
Did you have something to say? Edith? No, okay. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, so question for both of you. If someone, whoever that someone is, whether it was the MDC towns or the state or city of Hartford or whoever, wanted to utilize that facility or at least a permit for that facility to build a new MSW plant, and that's what really what our RFI was around was, is there anybody out there that can do and utilize new technology to process MSW, not mass burn, so to speak, but actually with different technologies. In this case, like with gasification, if someone wanted to try to reuse that permit, is that possible?
I think they still would have to go before the city of Hartford on zoning too, wouldn't they? Isn't that in the statute? Pretty sure it is. Too busy figuring out who the new mayor's gonna be, I guess. Anyway, further questions? David?
Does, does, the-
Commissioner Drake?
does Deep have any interest in MDC pursuing MSW? I'm not real clear on that. I mean, this is a direction, would you like us to go there, or we move on, just don't even bother looking at it? So if we pursue an MSW, some type of MSW collection, this would be at the bottom of your list of supporting it on our end?
Depends.
I understand, but based on anything, I mean, you have some plan that collect all the stuff, but burning it or gasification would be at the bottom of it. What you're saying, the bottom of the list. I'm just trying to think how we want to go with this. If you guys aren't interested at all in this thing, it's going to take a lot of horsepower from people here to figure out what we're doing. And if you're not that interested, how should we do it? I understand, but my point is, we pursue this or something, and I think we should. I just want to make sure they're pulling and not pushing on their end. That's right.
They're receptive.
Right, but I want them to be pulling. This is a big deal could be a big deal for everybody if we come up with a proper solution. I'm not sure what that is yet.
The Hartford Task Force took some positions, I believe, on size in the South Meadows, and size was the basic issue that they were dealing with. That took into consideration, I can't remember the size. It was a couple of 100,000 tons a year rather than 1 million in 70 communities. They thought that it was more responsible to have a smaller.
400 to 600,000 tons is what the governor has suggested.
The governor might have suggested that, but the city task force was articulating in the area of 200.
We could spread it out though, right,
How
Bill?
many towns would that be, that type of number?
I don't know. It probably would be all the MDC towns or whoever were in that.
West Hartford, as an example, is about 35,000 tons a year.
So if you added up East Hartford,
Hartford.
it'd probably be about 12 communities at most, depending on.
So just to get back to that site, right? So that obviously that site has a permit, but it sounds like that permit could not be used for any other new proposal. And the proposal, CTEC's proposal, identifies they need about 20 acres of property to do this. So I guess the question, I think, to add on to Commissioner Drake's question is, we're heading down this process, for MSW, and really, really, we've done this because our towns are being affected by the lack of capacity, and it's costing our towns money. So the state hasn't really done anything yet on this. No individual city has done it, so that's why the MDC did this RFI, looking for new technologies. I guess my question is, we talked about the permitting process, we talked about the environmental justice process. I guess the question would be, I'm not going to hold you to this, but would the DEEP be willing to consider? I use mass burn because mass burn is really the only technology outside of the RDF process that was used at CRA. But mass burn is the only thing, and I know that was a big no-no for DEEP. The answer to MSW with mass burn was an absolute no. And even the city of Hartford. So I guess the question is there a potential that DEEP could, with the right circumstances, support a air and solid permit in an environmental justice community in Hartford for another MSW processing plant? Yeah, that's what I meant. No, that's what I meant. No, what I meant was, what I meant was, we've had a lot of conversations with DEEP over the last 5-7 years, and a lot of the proposals that DEEP were looking at when DEEP had this exercise of looking into future facility replacement of the existing one. It was my understanding that mass burn, which was proposed, was not acceptable to DEEP. But it doesn't matter. That what's being proposed here is gasification. I guess my real question comes down to is is there any potential for an MSW plant to be either mass burn or some other technology like gasification pyrolysis in an environmental justice community in Hartford? Is that feasible?
could I add just that significantly changed the air quality standards that exist right now? That also dramatically improved the air quality standards that we're dealing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Made yourself clear. David,
I think so they can hear, based on CTEC's proposal, they were maybe a little ahead of it for us, because they did come in with a Canadian company that supply all the separation. If you, as you read the whole thing, they supply all the separation, then they would take the back end of it and burn it. I mean, the package may be correct if that's the direction we want to go, what they have.
we've got a long way to go.
No, long way to go. My point is, we're here to talk about the CTEC proposal. I mean, that was
Okay, any further questions?
One last other point is,
Go ahead, Andy.
is that, because I have to go now, but, yeah, we've talked in the past on my revenue committee about, waste, food waste. And if there's a possibility we could, separate the food waste and create another set of, byproduct that includes fertilizer, et cetera, and burn and get some electricity out of it as well. Great. If not, maybe we could divert it to that Southington plant or something like that. So that might help in our process.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the more significant things about gasification and pyrolysis, especially gasification with pyrolysis, that the temperatures that are generated are significantly higher than solid waste technologies that we've used in the past, which means the energy component, which would be a renewable energy source, would be significantly higher in terms of the amount of electric capacity that would be generated. And that's one of the major concerns we have in the state of Connecticut, where our energy costs are going through the ceiling. And for us at MDC, it directly affects us, thereby our ratepayers, and consequently, we see our search, at least the committee's been looking at, finding electric capacity that would get us off that grid and be self-dependent, not be independent of it in terms of the future.
And they burn PFAS too.
and PFAS heat, and also they're talking about F-gases now in their new technology, so.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, appreciate it. Further questions? When did we, I hope we sent these out to CTEC.
Not yet, we will. We'll do that today.
Yeah, they got a week to deal with it.
Well, just to clarify, so the process that we did with REA, if the commissioners have any questions, we allowed public questions.
Yeah.
If there's any questions that you want to add, we'll be happy to do that. I know Commissioner Drake had some questions we added to REA. Judy Allen, Mrs. Judy Allen added questions. If there's anybody else wants to add questions, we will. If not, we'll send them out.
Yeah, but this has to be quick because they're coming in, what, a week from now?
They are coming in August 10th.
Oh, the 10th, okay, so it's 2 weeks.
Yes.
Okay, so we do have time. I thought we only had another 6 days or so. So if there are any additions, contact John Myrtle, our clerk. That's the process, right? Or does it go to you? Kelly?
Yeah, send it to John.
It goes to
and
the
John will
clerk.
get
I
it
believe
to-
he's the
to
receiving entity.
We would, since there are like 80-something questions, we would like to get them to CTEC as soon as we can. So, John, what's the date you would like to have all questions in by?
Yeah. I mean, tomorrow I think would be ideal. I'm not sure I'm not sure what the sense is. If commissioners are feeling like they want to submit more, we can give more time. But I think tomorrow.
Because I would think we're going to send this immediately to them, and whatever we get, we can add on to it and send it to them so that they have an adequate time to address it. Further questions? If not, motion to adjourn.
General public comment.
I'm sorry, general public comment. Let me stay relative to the real world. Okay. Item number 5, opportunity for general comments, public comments. Item 6, commissioners' request for future agenda items. If not, the appropriate adjournment, motion to adjourn is in order. Is there a motion? Without objection, we stand adjourned.
Thank you, everyone from Deep, for attending.
And thank you to the staff for the questions, because I think these are going to be significant. They'll run consistent with what we've said in the past and the white paper and things of that nature, so we can get the questions answered.